Welcome to the Manville Entertainment Premises, the podcasting wing, where you are tuned in to Let's Talk. Damn it, I got so close to not. What are these things called? A video, whatever, a show on this channel. All right, today is spring cleaning. Yeah, I got a whole bunch of stuff. Whole bunch of random stuff. And we're just going to work our way through it. All right. So, starting with, this was an idea I had a while ago, and it's going to tie into the rest of the stuff I'm going to talk about today. Actually, you know what? Let's start with this is just for me personally. So, a lot of you have been wondering, what's up with Bowling Green football, right? I think we've all been wondering. Well, I can tell you what's been up with Bowling Green football, because I've been doing a lot of history keeping and bookkeeping for the football team for the last few weeks, months, years, really. And we are currently experiencing the worst time in the history of said football program. This is a football program that has put head coaches into the College Football Hall of Fame. This is a program that's put coaches into current NFL head coaching positions, like one Urban Meyer. So it's a storied program with a lot of rich tradition, a lot of rich history. And I don't know what's going on with this camera today. And yeah, we're currently experiencing the worst history we've ever experienced. This is a team that, aside from the whatever they are, Miami, University of Miami, whatever they are, that's the only other team that I believe has a better record, a better head-to-head versus Bowling Green. Bowling Green, other than Miami, is a winning team against every team in its conference. They run roughshod over their conference. And actually, it had been some time since they had done so. And so in the early 2010s, a guy named Dave Clawson really built this program back up, and we experienced not one but two championship seasons there in the mid 2010s, and felt like Bowling Green football is finally back. It was the king of the MAC. It was the crown jewel of a conference. And you know, you can say what you want about the Group of Five, but everyone knows how I feel about college football. It's anyone can win on any given Saturday. But Dave Clawson left, and came Dino Babers. Dino Babers says, I'm going to do whatever I can to bleed this program dry, and so that I can get whatever I need out of it now that Dave Clawson's built up this tremendous program and a tremendous winner. And so he raped it over the coals for about 2 years and then left. He didn't even win two So he comes in, goes to 2 championship games, wins 1, and he's gone. And so you've had 2 coaches, 3 championships, 3 championship games, all in like 3 years. So there's a lot of success. And then a guy named Mike Jinks comes in, and like, okay, Dino Babers, he was here for personal gain, but he at least maintained, like, he didn't bring the program up a level, but he at least maintained it where it was. Mike Jinks took the program and drove it into the ground. So 2016, he inherits James Kanapke, who was a senior quarterback. And mind you, James Kanapke still has single game records for his performance against Indiana. I don't think anyone's gonna ever attempt 72 passes in a Bowling Green uniform, but he did. He slung the ball 72 times at Dwight L. Perry Stadium in a victory over Big Ten opponent, Power 5 conference opponent Indiana. And that was no scrub Indiana. They had Tevin Coleman back when Tevin Coleman was a thing. Or it might have been the guy after him. It was one of those bruising backs. I know that. One of their NFL guys. But he inherits James Kanapke, who had played in the 24 led the Falcons to the 2014 MAC championship game where they lost. Then Matt Johnson came back in 2015, took his spot back over, won the championship. Well, here's Kanapke comes back for his senior year to not only lead the team to the championship game, but to hopefully win one. I've had shit on my screen for days. I don't know how to get it off. But yeah, Kanapke is basically plays his first game of his senior season at Ohio State. Bowling Green head coach Mike Jinks' first game, James Kanapke's first game back as starting quarterback, and they lose 77-10. And James Kanapke's senior season doesn't get off to a great start, venture to say. A few weeks later, they lose 77-3, the worst school loss in history at Memphis. And that's when James Kanapke, I mean, by that point, you've lost by like 140 points in 2 weeks. I mean, it's just time to rebuild. It's just so he was basically, yeah, you're a senior, you've done a lot for us, but there's really nowhere that we can take you, you know, like James Kanapke, like we can't take you anywhere. Like you're a senior, like this team is losing by 70 points every week. Like we just have to rebuild for the future. So championship quarterback ruined. Year one, off to a great start. Championship game quarterback, at least. A guy that has records that still stand the day that are basically unbreakable. 2017, starting quarterback, James Morgan. James Morgan is currently in the NFL and is currently, according to Madden 21's roster, the highest rated quarterback on the New York Jets roster. Well, I guess they have Zach Wilson. I guess James Morgan's got to beat out Zach Wilson. All right. But if you haven't quite figured out, I've been revolting against the NBA ever since the James Harden trade. I think that I'm revolting against the NFL ever since the Zach Wilson just being a thing. Like, I don't know. Just God. How Justin Fields wasn't drafted ahead of him, I have no idea. So 2017, we get to James Morgan. I mean, there's just no other way to say it. At Bowling Green, he stunk. He was throwing the ball out the field goal post from like 65 yards out. I mean, this guy was weird. I can't really explain the James Morgan thing. Basically, he transferred to FIU. Butch Davis, former NFL head coach, perfect system. He's barely scraping 3,000 yards, but he's like super efficient. So James Morgan, with the prototypical NFL build, he ended up getting drafted. It had nothing to do with Bowling Green's success. Bowling Green got worse in 2017. I believe 2017 was the worst they did. 2018 was finally we get freshman. I'm sorry. James Morgan was so bad in 2017 that we actually brought in Jarrett Doege at the end of the year as a true freshman. Well, by 2018, he was the incumbent starter, and Jarrett Doege had let's just say this. He was so good replacing James Morgan in 2017 that he was bound to have a sophomore slump because, you know, like he was a true freshman when he came in and did that. So he did. He had a little bit of a sophomore slump in 2018, but that's finally, when we rid ourselves of Mike Jinks after like 2.5 just complete nightmare seasons of taking a championship team and just so we get rid of Mike Jinks, but in doing so, we get rid of Mike Jinks' one of his assistants, which is Jarrett Doege's brother. So there's nepotism all about. Jarrett Doege ends up transferring to West Virginia, where he's been the starting quarterback at least last season. He'll be the starting quarterback coming into this season as well. So great. West Virginia, again, you guys like to crap on these group of 5 teams. Okay, Power 5 West Virginia. Where did they get their quarterback? Like group of 5 Bowling Green. Like their present day starting quarterback right now. And he was Bowling Green starting quarterback in 2018. 2019, Grant Loy, the legend that is. I mean, the team was so bad. Jarrett Doege had transferred or whatever. There was like one hope. His name was Matt McDonald. He was a transfer from Boston College. He wasn't eligible, so they had to go with career backup Grant Loy. Grant Lloyd played out of his mind against Toledo, and that was basically it. But that one game caught so much attention that he was able to eventually transfer to Auburn after the year. So coming into 2020, Matt McDonald, that guy I talked about that was the only chance for the year before, let's just say he struggled. The team went 0-6 in a shortened season, and we are in a world of hurt. There's just no other way you can describe it. And when you look at the quarterbacks, how painful it is. Not only that this is by far every decade that has existed for Bowling Green football, every single decade, Bowling Green has been a winning football team. The 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. It wasn't till the 2010s that they finally had a losing record. And I can tell you it's because of crap like this. You get a championship game quarterback in James Kanapke in 2016 for reasons unknown. I mean, just the fact that the team was getting its doors blown off so bad the first couple of weeks, they had to scramble to rebuild. So we ruined Kanapke. James Morgan transferred to FIU, and now he's on the Jets. Jarrett Doege transferred to West Virginia. Grant Lloyd transferred to Auburn. Bowling Green seems to be doing pretty bad, but their quarterbacks seem to be doing pretty all right. So when we understand that football, you can't win without a quarterback, our quarterbacks have gone on to be just fine. But it's Bowling Green that's stuck holding the shit sandwich that Mike Jinks cooked us. My God. So I thought that was super interesting. No one else is going to care about that. Okay, that was basically just for me. But just to find out that like all our guys have gone on to play for bigger schools or get drafted, and Bowling Green just slides further and further down the – oh, my God. They might actually be the worst team in college football. Anyway, transition here. I mentioned about doing a song review. There really isn't much to review. If you've never heard the song Cartoons and Cereal, okay? Cartoons and Cereal by Kendrick Lamar featuring Gunplay. It is like certifiable to give you goosebumps. Maybe you're not one of those people, but I'm one of those people that music can give me goosebumps, and it's rare that it doesn't. Particularly when listening to Gunplay's verse. Gunplay speaks about how there's been articles written about his verse. It's so unique and so out there. But basically, he really actually was awake for like 3 days. That's how you get like his voice. Like there's just no describing. Like there's no performing. There's no performing like the pain and like the. Just like there's no way to describe his voice. It's just it's gripping. His voice is gripping, and it's absolutely an incredible song. So if you go and you listen to it, it's certainly to give you goosebumps. Gunplay is definitely, he's shown up here and again and dropped off a little verse. Like I know he's done a thing with, but like I would have told you Gunplay was going to take over. Like, speaking of future, I thought Gunplay was the future. Like, someone like that. Like a superstar. A superstar. I would have thought Gunplay was going to be a superstar. It turns out, though, Gunplay, funny enough, Gunplay further drives home my never-ending theory that wrestlers and rappers are one and the same. I mean, just look at John Cena. John Cena to help his push up the card in WWE in the early mid 2000s dropped a rap album. But yeah, I was privileged enough to find out that Gunplay has tried his hand at professional wrestling. It's called the UWF. Just look up Gunplay UWF or Gunplay Wrestling. It's terrible, but it definitely goes to show that rappers are wrestlers, wrestlers are rappers. It's all intertwined. Can someone just get me some lessons, some wrestling lessons? I just need to go to wrestling school. That's it. I've already got all the other stuff worked out. And then this is just some funny wrestling stuff I wanted to run by you guys. I have in my hand 2 tag teams from the height in popularity of wrestling. Okay. We're talking like the Attitude Era, the Monday Night Wars. I have 2 tag teams that were both on television during that time who I believe could have, I won't say they could have been bigger stars, but they seem to really miss out on an opportunity to be a part of something special, even though they were seemingly there in that time to be part of it. So first is Amazing French Canadians, otherwise known as the Quebecers. They were in WCW from 1996 and 97, and then went back to WWF in 98. I'm sorry, what? You're telling me the 2 best years in WCW, 96 and 97, and then they jump back to WWF for the start of the Attitude Era? So somehow these guys missed the boat entirely. I mean, they did. They missed the boat entirely. And this was despite them getting the Amazing French Canadians got insane airtime on Nitro because the Quebecers were stars on early episodes of Raw. When Raw debuted in 1993, the Quebecers took the tag team championships off the Steiner brothers. That is no small feat. The Steiner brothers are long considered, along with like the Road Warriors, like the biggest badass tag team ever. And they were legit good, can legit perform. So you don't just scoff at the idea that you have the Quebecers were legit. I mean, they sucked, but you know what I'm saying? Like, they were presented legit. But then WCW brings them in and they give them this huge, like, they were on pay-per-view, Nitro, and they just did nothing. And then in WWF, they come back, and instead of being the Amazing French Canadians, they just spent WCW's hottest years being on WCW's channel as the Amazing French Canadians. They bring them back as the Quebecers again, and like that new generation gimmick from 5 years earlier, it just wasn't going to work. And then they got hurt. So I just thought it was interesting. Like, Amazing French Canadians just blew it. You were in WCW for like the birth of NWO. You're in WWF for the start of the Attitude Era. And I just hope they got paid. The other one would be, and this is probably the team that, like, you could argue they should have been bigger. Their aesthetic fit the Attitude Era to a T. And it's the Headbangers. The Headbangers from 1996 to 2000. Don't get me wrong. The Headbangers were busy in 1997. But it seemed like they got lost in the shuffle as WWF headed toward WrestleMania 14 and then the Attitude Era. And then obviously Thrasher gets hurt and born is Chaz. And we all know what happens there. So I guess for them, it was a matter of Thrasher getting hurt. But it just seems like they were wrestling for the tag championships in 97. And then as 98 rolled around, it didn't seem like the Headbangers were really a part of the Attitude Era plans, which just doesn't make sense. When I think of things that predate the Attitude Era that would have fit them quite nicely, I think obviously Goldust and then like the Headbangers. I don't know what they would have been perfect. That doesn't make any sense. And that brings me to my last point, which is I've read a lot. If you go on Wikipedia pages, certain Wikipedia pages, like if you're reading about like WrestleMania 14 or the Invasion angle or just bad examples, but like if you look up specific pay-per-views or specific shows, specific happenings in wrestling on Wikipedia, a lot of times it'll be like, this is often cited by certain critics as being the start of the Attitude Era. This is often cited by some particular sources as being the start of the Attitude Era. I'm going to tell you what the start of the Attitude Era is so we can just be done and just put that to bed. Okay, there is no doubt that the start of the Attitude Era, the official start, is WrestleMania 14. I mean, with like you can't say it's the Attitude Era and not have scratch logos. Okay, so like it's even a stretch calling WrestleMania 14 the start of the Attitude Era, because WrestleMania 14 is paying off 1997. That's how WrestleManias work. Like when you see WrestleMania, it's paying off the previous year. So although WrestleMania 14 takes place in 1998, it's paying off all of the storylines, everything that happened from 1997 for the most part. And or at least a lot of stuff that started and for the most like culminates in 97, carries over into 98, Royal Rumble, and then you get WrestleMania. Well, WrestleMania 13 pays off 1996, which no one can argue is the Attitude Era. 1996, 1995 gets a lot of growth, but 1996 is not much better in WWE. Just watching the Raw, well, I guess it would have been 95, but still, I've seen 96, and it's like they were punching above their weight or whatever. Like they had the ideas sort of, but like they had no or unearthly idea how to execute them yet. So WrestleMania 14 has to pay off 1997, which in my opinion, in a lot of people's opinion, is the culmination of everything that builds towards what would become the Attitude Era. Like 97, you still have like Bret Hart and all that. You can't be the Attitude Era as much as people want to say 97 is the Attitude Era. 97 is the Attitude Era. No, it's not, you big baby. You can't have the Attitude Era with HBK and Bret. And that's the other thing too. The Attitude Era definitively is Shawn Michaels' list. And that's part of why I missed out on Shawn Michaels' career renaissance, because the Attitude Era was such a well-defined part of the company's history. And like a lot of people, I sort of fell off with the Attitude Era in terms of watching it every week as a kid. And that's when HBK made his comeback, easy for me to say. So in my opinion, you can't have the Attitude Era when you've got Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels running around, the two faces of the new generation. Like they are the new generation. So there's no HBK or Bret. Obviously, WrestleMania 14 sets up Austin versus McMahon and eventually The Rock. But Austin versus McMahon, which is the storyline, like Austin McMahon defines the Attitude Era. And in late 97, you still have Vince McMahon on commentary, for crying out loud, for some of the pay-per-views. So anytime Vince McMahon is doing it's not the Attitude. It's terrible new generation Vince McMahon commentary. And everything else is along for the ride. Apparently not the headbangers, Mosh and Thrasher, but for the most part, everything else was just along for the ride. As soon as you culminate Austin as champion, to me, that's the start of the Attitude Era, and there's no going back. So, thank you for joining me today. I know that was so random, so loosely tied together. But hey, spring cleaning, I don't know that anyone's gonna watch this video just based on the title. But yeah, I had some stuff that was cluttering my desk, just a couple ideas here and there that I can finally throw these away. I am, however, going to keep the BGSU quarterback one, because this is a growing list. Like Matt McDonald, I literally have one here. Like, what's next? The NFL? Like, clearly he's going to have to go somewhere else, like transfer, and then he'll latch on and become an NFL quarterback, and we'll just all get to laugh and more likely cry at what's become of the football team. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys hopping on today. I don't have much else for you. Although, I don't know, 24 minutes. I feel like we can hang out another minute. Like, what's another minute? You know what I'm saying? Here, what's that thing? ASMR? I'll eat a pretzel for you. Actually, yeah, I don't know if I can do a video tomorrow, though. I'm going to be so swamped. So maybe I should have given you guys a little bit more firm of a topic to really sink your teeth into, since I might not be able to make a video tomorrow. But then again, I did make the video a little longer, so maybe you can watch the other half tomorrow, especially when I talk multiple topics. You can pause it and whatever. So, all right, look at that. I love you guys. Make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, do whatever you got to do. And we'll catch you on the next one. Like I said, if it's not tomorrow, it'll definitely be Thursday. But love you guys. See ya.